Oh, too funny.
Hi, welcome back to another spotlight session of Single Mom's Guide to Life, Mentors and Resources. Today I have with me Marlo Ellis, and Marlo is a freedom coach and master of feminine badassery in life and business. After over 20 years of teaching and coaching experience, Marlo has taken hundreds of women to the next level in their lives and their businesses through her passionate and results-based coaching style. She's a feminine badass with a passion to guide women to find their voice, build their confidence, stand in their power, and own their space and time on this planet as they can live a life of complete freedom and bliss by design. Marlo supports and empowers other women as they make massive decisions to up-level their lives, their businesses, through think tanking, creative strategizing, and promoting powerful action so they can launch forward in their future and create the legacies they dream of for their families and themselves. Welcome.
Sorry, it was so long.
It's long, but it's so good.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me, Trevina. I love doing this kind of stuff, as you know. So this is great.
Well, I've read your bio. With a lot of people, I've kind of, shortened it, but yours was just so good. And I think it's so on point. Like the words are so purposeful as to what you do and how you do it that I just couldn't take anything out of it.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm honored to
Now I have to remember what was said. I'm just kidding. I got it.
Well, so yeah, I've read your bio, but tell us in your words, talk to us about your perspective in coaching and why you do what you do and how you help women.
Well, I guess my coaching really is very woman-centric. So because I'm a woman, I'm able to kind of figure out, where we tend to have cracks in our foundation, or just from all of my years of experience as a fitness coach, first and foremost, before I came into the freedom coaching, I worked with women, helping them transform their bodies. And it's incredible how much information I got from that particular career and, that block of time in my life to really help me catapult my career in this way now, because now I can really say to women, oh, all right, so I know they feel crappy and I know that you're not feeling like who you're really feeling, but it's not really about your body. It's so much deeper. And that's the work I do now, which is really working with women and helping them heal their broken pieces, as I like to call it, or just kind of getting clear, kind of pushing all the junk away and remembering who they are. Or maybe now that they've had kids and now that they've gone through divorce or now that they're married, they've completely transformed and they're a different person and their values have totally changed. And if you haven't had an opportunity to step into that and really practice that, then the time will come when you say, oh, I'm a totally different person than I used to be. However, I'm still in the same skin. I need to figure out how to do this. And so that's kind of the basis of my coaching, is helping women get real clear about what it is that they see themselves being for the rest of their lives and then getting them there.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I, just personally as a fan and as a member of your community, one thing I pride myself on in everybody that I'm presenting to the Single Mom's Guide to Life community is that they're coaches that resonate with me. They're coaches that I would endorse and I would put my money behind. And I would never recommend somebody that I don't truly believe in. But you in particular,
that just gave me goosebumps. Thank you. I'm honored. I really am honored.
From the moment I met you, I am grateful and inspired by your championing of vulnerability and getting down and dirty with who you are and loving that part of you before you transform, and I think that's kind of where you came from, probably, I bet, as a physical coach, is that like, love this body first.
Right.
Love this body and this journey and this mind and this hurt and this story. Yeah. And then let's talk about your next story.
Absolutely.
And that is so, that's why I'll follow you to the ends of this earth, because you are such a champion of that perspective and that truth.
Well, we don't do ourselves any favors by self-loathing. And it was really interesting. I was watching a TED Talk last night because I'm in the process of going to an event and I need to do like a TED Talk style TED Talk. So I'm in full panic. I'm like, 12 minutes, you know me, I love to talk. I'm like, who tells me I can only speak for 12 minutes? Anyway, so I was watching this woman speak, and as she was speaking, you know, she was really talking about that very thing, about the fact that we have to love who we are right now. And I know there's women who are watching this, Trevina, and you know as well, they're going, I just can't. I'm sorry, but I can't. And my answer is, yes, you can, but it's a decision, right? Just like eating breakfast is a decision, or getting your toenails painted. Everything that we do, including how we treat ourselves, is a decision. So if you want to sit in self-loathing, you've decided to do that. You've made a decision because you haven't always hated yourself. And there's a woman who I just did an interview with in the Feminine Badass Society. Her name is Dawn K. Gibson. And she talks about, as young girls, we love our bodies. You know, we love ourselves. We're on the monkey bars, running around, we're jumping, we're in trees. And then one day a trauma happens. And then we hate ourselves. What did I do to deserve that? What did I do to make that person do that to me or say that to me? And you and I both know that that's where the damage starts, right? So we haven't always hated ourselves. And so it really is a decision. So when women come to me now and they're so, you know, they're so torn apart, I say to them, listen, first of all, you have to love the journey. Because look at how much wiser you are. You're sitting here telling me that you know better, that you've learned your lessons. You know, and I try to show them that that's actually been a very important piece of their journey. And now let's take that information and use it to help other women or to help other children. And then they go, oh, I never thought of taking what's happened to me and flipping it over. And then I just say, well, that's what I did with my story. I couldn't sit in it myself. It would have killed me. But once I used it to help other people, then all of a sudden it had purpose, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm reminded of the quote, you know, the cracks are where the light gets in, you know.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, but it is, you know, where you're broken is where your light both comes in and shines out, you know, and it becomes you have a phrase for this, but allowing your mess to be your, how do you say it?
Message. Let your mess be your message.
Let your mess be your message. Yes. And that is, you know, you can allow your story to defeat you, or you can allow it to catapult you to the next level.
That's right. Yeah.
So you are a master of feminine badass.
Woo! I like that.
So what is a feminine badass?
Oh, that's a good question. It's funny. I always ask women when I do do my conversations with them that question, but now that you're asking me, I'm like, okay. So to me, a feminine badass is somebody who uses her voice, her authentic voice, somebody who is fully and completely aware of the shit in her life, and she's decided to embrace it. Somebody who is confident and honest and strong and seriously loves and supports other women. I that's kind of my newest piece, because I have seen so much go down where women are incredible and supportive and bright and wise, and then I see them try to take down other women. And whether it's an online business or whether it's in a public venue, and I think, you know what, I thought you were a feminine badass till you opened your mouth and said that.
Right.
And that takes you right down, because now you know what, you're not confident, you're not powerful, and you're not authentic, because that's coming from somewhere and you're showing up as somebody else. And so I really do believe becoming a feminine badass and being a feminine badass is really all about being the best possible version of a woman that you can be. And then really sharing that out with other women, you know, women who maybe are really struggling with that. So many people say, I know, you know this, I'm not the person I want to be. And that's a very insightful statement for somebody to make, you know? So.
Well, and I think I definitely think it starts with owning that, that soft, vulnerable, feminine power, you know, that femininity that we're taught in this patriarchal society, that's your weakness. You know what I mean? The fact that you feel so deeply about something, or the fact that you are, you know, you break down in this manner. That's not beautiful. You know, that you need to shame that and guilt that, and that is what's wrong with you. But it's about, there's nothing wrong with me. You know, that's what, you know, when you say it to me, if I had to define it, it's owning that part of me, like, there's nothing wrong with me. Even the parts of my story where I was like, shouldn't have done that, but I know better. And when you know better, you do better. And so it's like, you know, it's owning that really important power that only you have as a woman, and we all share it.
It's a divine gift, being a woman and being feminine. I like to call it your divine feminism. It's something that men don't have, just like men have divine masculinity that women don't have. And it's that thing that women love about men, that guy thing, if you're, and so, yes. And that's a piece that I missed, was that absolutely when I was thinking about what I was going to call my society, I wanted to think, I really wanted to focus on what is a woman, what is my ideal woman? And what I realized was a woman who is still feminine, and you don't have to step out and be masculine in order to be badass. And I think that that's part of the problem with the word badass, is that so many people think, oh, badass, oh, you got to be like, oh, tough. And, you're stepping into your masculine side. I'm like, no, I really believe that being feminine can be badass, being full, like you said, being fully and completely gentle and soft and nurturing and compassionate. And these are some of the things that women are gifted with, right? And why don't we take those and really bank on them and turn them into something that we can share with the world.
Right.
Like the Mother Teresa's of the world. She was a feminine badass, if ever there was one.
Yeah.
People would look at her and say, are you serious? I'd say, oh yeah, because she's all of those things. Fully and completely authentic. And completely honest. But she was such a compassionate, heart-driven leader. And she was like 4 foot nothing.
Right. And that was her superpower. That was what made her magic on earth, is that she owned that compassion and operated from that.
Right.
And knew that it was powerful enough to demand a presence on this,
Right. Yeah. And, it's really interesting because just one more thing about her, she was so small and so plain and so simple. And she didn't have Wi-Fi and Facebook and, text messaging and all of this stuff. But look at the impact that she has made just from her word. Just from her word and from her presence, right? She showed up everywhere.
Right.
So we can do great things with small things, right?
Right. What we know is that, emotion is the only energy that moves, it's energy in motion. And so, being a feminine badass and being called, oh, you're emotional and you're sensitive and you're so that's your energy in motion, So when you can own that.
I love that. Emotion, energy, emotion. I never thought of that.
Yeah, then decide how you want it to affect your story, and then you can be a beneficial presence on this planet. Then you can start changing things. So talk to me about confidence in, in this whole ball of wax. How do you start there?
Wow, confidence is a tough one, and it's really something that we have a confidence deficient society. It's just crazy. And the more people I talk to, the more I realize that confidence is the piece that so many people want. It's the thing that they say, oh, if there's one thing I could be, it's confident. Because of course, with confidence comes all kinds of stuff, right? Which standing in your power, being authentic, saying yes and you mean yes, and no when you mean no, and doing what you want, not what others expect you or want you to do. So the whole confidence piece is really important. And what I can say about confidence is it's a skill, for sure. But again, it's something that we had originally. The reason I believe it's a skill now is because that trauma happens at some point in our life, and our confidence is basically, it's kind of bulldozed. And what we have to do is we have to rebuild it. So when you start rebuilding your confidence, I'm practicing acting as if, as Jack Canfield would say, just act as if. When you start acting as if, what happens is you actually get to a point in your life where you're one day wake up and go, maybe I wasn't feeling confident, but if I look at all of the actions that I've just, all of the things that I've just done over the last 6 months or 3 months, that took confidence. That took, and then all of a sudden you can say, yeah, I'm confident. But it is a practice, and you have to practice every day, being confident, making a phone call that's going to be that really hard phone call to make. You have to step into your confidence because maybe your heart's fooling you, right? But being confident and saying, I know that what I'm doing is right. I do believe that if you are authentic, everything goes back to that place. If you are authentic, and if you are, can you hear my dog barking?
Yeah.
Sorry. It's like, I don't know if I have her in a room with the door closed.
Oh, well, she doesn't like the door closed. She's a feminine badass.
She's a feminine badass. the confidence piece really comes from all of the other stuff, right? Living in your authenticity, being real with who you are, being vulnerable. Because when you do that, then you can be confident by accident. And if you have to be confident by accident, that's okay. But confidence really does just come from, really, it's so basic. I love who I am, I understand who I am, and I'm good with it.
Right. Yeah.
That's confidence.
I love that you just mentioned about loving who you are, you know, and sometimes that's taking a little bit of inventory, like you say, you know, going through how we're put together and, you know, very intimately feeling where our cracks are and loving that, you know, loving that part of us as well, so that we don't go out in the world and project our insecurity, you know, from that place of not knowing where we are. Because once we know what our strengths are, and then I think it's important too that, like, if you know that's your strength, stand in that zone of genius.
Yes,
don't try to be something you're not, you know, like there are things that Marlo does that I don't do. But that's not the way I'm wired. But I can say to Marlo, go do what you're good at. You know, I can put
hone in your zone. Yeah.
But I don't have to project an insecurity because I know what I own. I know what I have, and I'm staying in that zone of genius. So being confident about what you are and how you are made up, and recognizing what isn't so strong is not a bad thing. You know, you do have strengths. There's something you can do that no one else can do in a way that no one else can do it, you know? And that is where you can operate from that perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I had written something the other day, and I had said something like, be defiantly you. And one of the girls in my group was like, oh, I love that. And I hadn't really thought about it when I wrote it. But afterwards, I thought that's exactly what confidence is. You're defying what other people expect you to do. And what you're doing is you're just being defiantly you. You're saying, no, I'm going, no matter what you say, no matter how hard this is going to be, no matter what risk or what sacrifice I might have to make, you know, make as a result, I am still going to stand very tall in who I am. And of course, those are that we all know that the people who are world leaders and the people that we look back on in history and say, wow, that person was an icon. Those are people who do that. They're defiantly themselves. And as a result, they take a lot of heat, but at the end of the day, they've left a legacy of strength and power and confidence, and people look up to them, right? As examples. Yeah.
So what would be the next kind of strategy? You know, we've talked about confidence. What would be the next strategy to mastering our own feminine badassery?
Well, I think that I want to go into authenticity for a minute, and I feel almost like I'm working backwards doing this one, but authenticity is a difficult word for a lot of people to understand because it's kind of a new buzzword out there. A lot of people are talking about it. Be your authentic self, be authentic, you know, authenticity, all this kind of stuff. But quite honestly, authenticity is really just, again, going back to that piece of you that in your soul seat, right? So we're almost talking about your intuition and that inner voice, that voice that says, you know better than this. You know that this is not a good decision for you. And we say it all the time. I knew I shouldn't have done this. You know, I had a gut feeling. You know, there's all those taglines around that. And that's a piece of authenticity. That's saying, you know what, as much as I know that this might be kind of a short-term fix, or this might be lots of fun or whatever, I know that authentically the inner Marlo, the inner Trevina, the woman who wants to, the woman who wants to honor herself is saying that this isn't a good idea. You know, that short-term gain isn't going to pay off in the big picture because it's not the person I want to be. So that authentic self, and it's really hard to get in tune with that girl because we've spent for so many years silencing her and, you know, really muffling her voice because of the opinions of others, because of fears, you know, a big piece of that. Trying to figure out who we are. Sometimes we just do it because we really don't know. You know, in my 20s, gosh, what a mess I was. I was all over the map. I wasn't authentic. I thought I was, but I didn't even know what authentic looked like. So sometimes we just do it out of, you know, ignorance, for lack of a better word. But when you get to a point in your life where things are starting to clear the way, then listening to that inner voice and being authentic and saying what you really mean without hurting anybody, without, you know, you're not causing pain, but you're coming from a place of love and self-honor. That's authenticity to me.
I love that phrase, self-honor. You know what?
Yeah.
You know, what's good for you? You know, a lot of times, especially as women, we're doing what our partner wants or what our kids need or
Right.
what our bosses want or what our family expects us to do in this situation. But it never do we ask that question, what do I want or what do I
Well,
need?
what we also do what we've always done, which is patterns and cycles. And I know for myself, I had so many relationships that weren't fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
They were good, but they weren't wow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until I got to a point where found myself in an abusive relationship, which is really the basis of all of my work, because that's where I did the most personal growth was in that time. But when we create, those patterns and cycles and we continue to run that same circle, we just dig ourselves deeper into that hole.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really is too recognizing, hey, that was my old pattern, but look where I am now. Where did it get me? Right. As long as I'm really happy where I am, those patterns are great. But if I'm in a place where I'm not happy, then it's time to ditch the junk, right? And fresh and step into a fresh start.
Right. I love that you mentioned that you were in that abusive relationship, and that's kind of the basis for your work, because that's very much the basis of my work.
I know, yeah.
And the basis of rebuilding and being really vigilant about my boundaries and my authenticity and my power. Never again will I give away, I always call it agency, because I felt like you know how in football, how they have the draft, do they have football in Canada? Well, they have the draft. And what happens is they draft this talent, right? Like they go out, they pick the top talent, put their jersey on them, and then they become agents of their team.
Right.
I felt like I drafted my talent, my love, my authenticity, my power over to this man. Mm-hmm. And so I will never again give over my agency to somebody else. Like I decide, and it's me. I am the force that makes it happen up here. And so that I think that's why I probably am so inspired by your story, is because I see that reflection of owning yourself and owning your power and owning your choices and taking responsibility not only for the life we've lived up to this point, but for where we're going from here. It's really about not blaming and taking responsibility for your life and deciding what's it going to be.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that should be the third piece of being a feminine badass, because taking responsibility probably was the hardest lesson for me to learn. I, of course, for many years prior to the abusive relationship, I blamed other people for everything that went wrong in my life. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have a terrible life. I had a great life. My life was great in that I was working and living and being. But I hadn't taken any responsibility for any of these things that had happened, along the way. And then when I got into this abusive relationship, I blamed him. Oh my gosh, it was the blame game 24/7. And it's funny because as much of a you-know-what as he was, even though I have no anger about that anymore, he was, he was not a nice person. And I can look back on that. But one of the things he said was, you blame everybody else for everything all the time. And I have to say he was absolutely right. And that was one of the wisest things he ever said to me, because it actually took me back in my tracks and it made me do a full assessment of my life. Mm-hmm. And that was toward the very end. And of course I played a part in that abusive relationship because I allowed him to abuse me. He didn't lay a hand on me, but he was an emotional abuser and he was verbally abusive and he had lots of affairs with other women. And those were all ways of putting me in, like, causing me all kinds of pain. And that's abuse. But I didn't really recognize that until afterward. And I thought, I was so responsible for that. And when women come to me and say, oh, he's doing this and he's doing that, I usually say, well, why is that being allowed? Why is that even happening? And so what we've done is, as women, we've kind of, we get exhausted, right? And we step back and we just say, just whatever. And we don't take that responsibility. But actually, talking about power, becoming responsible and taking full responsibility, even for your massive screw-ups that are embarrassing, is taking your power back.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so what I realized was that the more I step into things and say, I'm fully and completely responsible for what's going here, I'm not going to give somebody else that responsibility. That's mine. That was my choice. But when something good happens as well in my life, I say, I did that. I'm the, it comes full circle. That happened because I made it happen. And women have such a hard time saying, yeah, I'm really great at something. And I would say, listen, sister, get out there and declare it, because you made that happen. It's your responsibility. But then equally, when things go down in your life that aren't pretty, I want you to take a look at it and say, hey, what was my role here? Like, for realsies. Did I engage? Did I allow? Did I continue? Should I have left? Did I go back after I left? I did that like 4 times. He and I split up several times. And why didn't I just stay gone? Right? My choice was to go back. Full and 100% complete responsibility. Jack Canfield in the Success Principles talks about 100% responsibility, and that you cannot move anywhere in your life forward with massive momentum unless you're willing to accept full responsibility for everything that's happened up to that point. When I read that, I was like, I had to read that chapter for a week. I was like, because you have to start assessing, right? But when you do that, you're so powerful. So yeah, responsibility equals power, right? Blame equals empowering somebody else.
Yeah, for the longest time, I think in my story, I was this like adjudicator of fair. You know what I mean? And so I would think, well, in my mind, she did this to me, and that's why I did this. It was this equation. But then I think at some point in my evolution, it occurred to me that I was like, wait, I not only control circumstances, like I control how I act in a situation, but I also control my reaction. And so and then on top of that, I can draw certain situations to me based on the energy I emit. And that's obviously going to another state of esotericness. But I'm saying, I finally got to this point where I was like, whoa, I really can create my reality, and I can craft my reaction for a better outcome. Right. And when I realized that, I was like, being a victim doesn't serve me. Right. Because like you said, it empowers another person. And it's just not in my makeup for me to say that somebody has power over me anymore. It's not part of my story. No. But
and that's probably why you got real uncomfortable in that abusive relationship, right? Because it's not what sat right with you. It wasn't you being authentic. It was you constantly, muffling that girl, right? Or that woman who knew better, wanted to do more, deserved better. And why do we stay? It's crazy. But that's a whole other conversation, because I actually figured out why you stayed, but it took a lot of time, Well,
tell me a little, just very quickly.
Well, I really do believe, and this was my faith, part of my work is kind of faith-based. And I don't mean faith as in a religious base, but I really do believe that my experience was a divine gift.
Oh, yes.
And so I had to be there. That's why I stayed. I wasn't done yet. And it's funny because I have to even as I sit here and think about it, but it's true. I had to go through all of those pieces in order for me to do the work that I'm doing now. Does that mean that all women who are in abusive relationships should stay hoping to learn a lesson? Absolutely not. See, there's different people in different situations. This was the first abusive relationship I'd ever been in. And as we all know, not everybody's all bad, right? And so I had to learn, because I had grown up. A lot of this has to do with my upbringing as a child as well. Raindrop. I'm so sorry. My dog is just like, when I say her name, she stops. It's weird. But anyway, my childhood was a little bit of a bubble. I had a beautiful childhood, and I didn't really experience trauma until I was in that abusive relationship. And I needed to, sister. I actually had to have shit go down in my life for me to pop the bubble, because I was floating through like, why do you, people used to say to me, oh my, I have this terrible, I'm in an abusive relationship. I'd say, why don't you just leave? Well, yeah, that's not what they needed to hear. And so I needed to stay in that in order to learn the life lesson. And so I do believe that the experiences that we have in our lives are divine gifts. It's what we do with them after. And there comes a time when the gift has been given, and now you need to step into something besides that and use it. If you just use it as a negative story that you carry around like a bag of crap on your shoulder, it does you no good. But what I decided to do and what you decided to do, Trevina, was to take that story, to flip it on its belly, to learn from it and share with other women that you can move from struggle into strength, that you can make your message, right? And so I really do believe that there is always a reason why things happen the way they do. And I just know that mine was a divine gift. I wish I could look at him and say, thank you so much for waking me the frick up, because he really did, you know?
So tell us before we wrap up,
right.
What are some, I know you have a few events or even challenges or boot camps that might be coming up, but just, tell us how we can work with you, what you have coming up in the pipeline. Right.
Sure, yeah. So right now I have a program called Becoming a Feminine Badass, which I believe I gave you the link for that, and the women are more than welcome to dive into that. And that's a 3-day kind of a starter, a feminine badass starter, really. And it's me just helping you get into the right headspace. What is a feminine badass? And, is this something that I can do in the pockets of my day? Well, yes. And so what it is 3 days of working very intensely, but they're just short little units, short little, segments, but it's amazing what you can take out of it and apply to your life instantly. So that's the first one. And then the second one that I'm just about to roll out today is called The Palette of Power. And that's really cool. It's actually taking my creative side and my coaching side and putting them together. So what I've done is I've created a program that's a hands-on online workshop, and it's taking color and connecting color with our lives and then using those colors to relate to certain feminine badass values. So red is resilience. So it actually comes from my program called Badass is the New Black. So this is a spin-off from that. So resilience is the new red, vulnerability is the new violet, growth is the new green, owning it is the new orange, and then I have one more that I can't think of right now at the moment. But empowerment is the new purple. And so what I do is I actually connect those values and those, I call them supercharged badass superpowers, basically. I connect it with the color. And I do the super cool workshop so that you can actually, when you're in a situation where you need to be empowered or where you need to be resilient, that you pull red. It's crazy. I've created this all on my own, and it's really neat.
Your colors are very connected with the archetypal meanings of the colors.
Right.
I don't know if you did that deliberately, but red is considered a birthing color, so for it to be a resilience, and purple is typically a royal color for,
exactly.
So and I'm thinking of your auras, what those colors in your auras. I mean, you hit the nail on the head.
I don't know. That's funny. I don't even know that stuff. But what I did was I thought to myself, what does red represent to me? When would I need to see red? Right? So if I'm standing in a situation where I need to be resilient, I can pull up the color red into my mind and I'll think resilience. And then all of the stuff that you do in that one segment workshop to kind of give you the tools you need to be resilient. And so I'm really excited about that. And then of course I have my trip to Tulum in my Soul Sister Mastermind retreat in Tulum in November. So I have lots of stuff going on, but the women can find all of that in the Feminine Badass Society.
And I'll put your links on your profile page.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Marlo. Always a pleasure. I can't wait till we do it again.
I know.
I just, like I said, I'm such a fan. I love your work and I love the way you do it. And
thank you so much, sister. And I appreciate you having me here. And hello to all of you badass ladies out there.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to sign off for now and we'll talk to you, Marlo.
Okay.